In this recent NBA draft, we saw a few star forwards drafted, who I'm sure will be some of the top players in the NBA soon, but for the sake of these videos, I prefer to talk about guys who are already established, so we will not be seeing either Ben Simmons or Brandon Ingram in the actual list for today's video, but if I go and make this same vid a year from now, I'm sure they'll both be in this thing, as these two seem to be the guys who are going to take the reins of the small forward positions in the NBA for a long time, but there's already a couple of guys who I feel are in the same boat as them, but they've already got a year or two or perhaps even more in the NBA, and we're going to talk about it with 5 young small forwards with huge potential, but I have 9 million disclaimers beforehand. For one, if you watched my power forward video, you will have seen that I consider Jabari Parker to be a small forward. I feel like that's the position he's meant to be at. Now, do the Bucks give him a decent amount of time at the small ball 4? They do, but I personally consider him to be a small forward, which is kind of giving away one of the people for this list, but screw it, it's fine. I also have to talk about his teammate, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who you could consider a small forward, but I think Giannis, like Jabari, is meant to be a small forward in my opinion. I feel like Giannis is meant to be a point guard based on how good he was in the past 2.5 months last season at the point guard position, so I wouldn't really consider him a small forward. Funny enough, he's also not in my point guard video for this, but again, don't talk about it. And also, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. I've spoken about MKG so many times on this channel at this point, I don't want to get redundant, so the too long didn't read. He's a great athlete, great defender, he just has to learn how to shoot, but I'd rather talk about some guys who I haven't given as much attention to, so you won't be seeing MKG on this list. And also, because I just love to keep talking before the actual list starts, TJ Warren is an honorable mention. I was very close to putting him in this top 5. TJ seems like an inside scorer who can be very efficient in the NBA. He's a shot maker and a shot creator, also an excellent cutter, and I think he can be a very efficient scorer, shooter, everything for the Phoenix Suns moving forward. But I gotta think of 5, and he just couldn't make it. And we're gonna start this off with perhaps my favorite young player in the NBA right now, Justice Winslow of the Miami Heat, who is going to be a toy/weapon/switchblade for Eric Spoelstra because of his defense, because he can make a lot of NBA players' lives a living hell when they go up against the Miami Heat. His defense, he's fantastic. We saw in his rookie season his ability to stay in front of established players. He's a brick wall, man. The guy's built as hell. It looks like he's been bodybuilding for a decade, but he's only like 20 years old. If you want to try to get by him, good luck, because I don't know how you're going to do it. He's just going to stop you in your tracks. But his versatility as a defender is huge as well, because he has the athleticism and the lateral quickness to go against guards and smaller players, but he has the strength to go up against wings and power forwards as well. And that muscular build could also make him a hell of an inside scorer, because he could just bully you inside, kind of like LeBron James. But also with Winslow, on top of being very good defensively, he's also a quality rebounder, which means he could be a guy to lead the break for you. He can also be effective in transition since he's pretty swift on his feet as well. Now, is he perfect? No. He's got to do a lot of work on his offensive game. He's got to become a real threat from outside and be a shooter. But at this young, that type of thing can be taught. But you know what can't be taught? Maturity and leadership and composure and any other word that I can think of to say Winslow doesn't panic. He gives off a leadership sort of vibe, and he's only, 20 years old? So I think he could be the heart of the Miami Heat for a very long time if he shows off that leadership quality necessary to be one of the top guys, and he was just showing it in his rookie season. So I think Winslow, with hopefully an improved jump shot, leadership qualities, and already being a fantastic defender, he definitely has a world of potential at the small forward position, and he could become perhaps the best player on the Miami Heat in a year, maybe 2. Now, Stanley Johnson of the Pistons is pretty similar to Justice Winslow, and if you spend any time on NBA Reddit, you will see more than a few threads of people arguing about which one of these guys is better. This is what I'm going to say. Everything that I just said about Justice Winslow defensively can pretty much be said for Stanley Johnson. Very good defender, can defend guards, can defend forwards. Also looks like he's been lifting long before he actually entered the NBA. A threat in transition as well because his athleticism is no joke. But Stanley has shown more of an offensive game. He shot 30% from 3, including 1 month where he shot 35%. That's really decent for a rookie. And he also attempted 8 field goals a game, whereas Justice Winslow attempted about 6. So you could see Stanley Johnson's offense take a leap before Winslow's does, but at the same time, Stanley also shot 37% from last year, so inefficiency might be a fear with him, I don't know. But again, the defense is the real calling card. He's going to be great. Whenever someone's going off against the Pistons and Stan Van, Stanley's going to be right there to deal with it. But again, that offense could be a real thing for him, and it could be this season, as he's probably going to be the 6th man for them. And Stan Van has said that while Stanley Johnson was good overall last season, he did have some moments where he was trying a little too hard. Hopefully he dials back on that a little bit and gets a bit more efficient, but he has a lot of potential, man. Now, while scoring might be a question for Stanley Johnson and Justice Winslow, it's not one for Tobias Harris. He's put up 15-plus points before in his NBA career, and I think he actually has potential to be a 20-point scorer for the Detroit Pistons, because when you combine his size, strength, and ability to put the ball on the floor, he always had the potential to be a big-time scorer. I just feel the Orlando Magic, since they never had a whole lot of consistency on that team, it wasn't the best situation for him. Now here in Detroit, under Stan Van Gundy, who's one of the best head coaches in the league, I think you could see Tobias really emerge as a big scorer for them. It helps that with his size he can get to the free throw line, where he shot 90% once he went to the Pistons for about 27 games. Now, there have been some criticisms of him in his career, one of which is sometimes he can be a bit of a ball stopper. I think on the Pistons, given he has some guys around him who can really be finishers, and again, because they like to run the pick and roll and he's a ball handler himself, you could see him get a few passes out to Andre Drummond under the basket. He's also never been the best off-ball defensive player. Sometimes he can fall asleep. Stan Van's great in that category of the game, so I think we could see some improvement from him there. But besides those two areas, there's not a lot of questions about Tobias Harris. I saw Isaiah Thomas once say, if he finds himself in the right situation, he can be one of the top players in the league. I kind of agree with that one, because he's already put up 17 points per game on a Magic team that didn't entirely know what it was doing, and now he's on an organization run by Stan Van Gundy, with one of the best centers in the NBA in Andre Drummond, and a playmaker who's emerged in Reggie Jackson. And then when you add all that up to the fact that he's become a pretty decent outside shooter. I mean, last season, in his last 27 games, he shot about 38% from 3, so I think Tobias can be a big-time scorer, and I think the culture of the Pistons and Stan Van can clean up all the other things. Now, we might as well continue the scoring momentum with Jabari Parker, who was alluded to earlier in the video, but don't talk about it, it's fine. And I actually think Jabari, if it wasn't for his ACL injury in his rookie season, I think we would have already seen him take a bit of a jump in his second year, but unfortunately that season was kind of meant for coming back. But regardless, Jabari was put on this earth to score baskets, and he's already shown a great ability of scoring within the three-point line when it comes to mid-range jumpers, scoring inside, but also just getting his own shot off. He's shown a lot of quality one-on-one abilities as well. And, well, when we talk about the actual three-point line, he's actually been kind of hesitant to take them, which is weird because he was very good from there in college. But that doesn't mean he's not a threat from out there, because he's a very good cutter. And so you can't just forget about him the moment that he passes the ball off, because he could very easily dish it and then cut to the basket immediately. And given that he's a larger body than most, decent chance he's going to finish it on you. So you can never forget about him where he is. And he actually reminds me of Carmelo Anthony in the sense of someone who can grab their own rebound, walk the ball up floor, and then get into their own offense, which could really take advantage of a backpedaling defense. Now, Jabari, we did see him really take off about the last 2.5 months of this previous season, where he put up about 18 points per game, shooting around 50% from the field, and I think the only thing holding him back, potentially, would be that three-point shot. And I think once Jason Kidd takes the reins off of him, we could see Jabari average over 20 points per game, because he's already mastered the ability of the mid-range, cutting inside, playing one-on-one. He can do it all. I want him to chuck up a couple of three-pointers. Come on, J-Kidd. Let Jabari free. So yeah, he's good. And finally, Andrew Wiggins of the Minnesota Timberwolves, who was a really big deal when he was drafted number 1 overall, and he's been pretty much everything we thought he was going to be. For one, he is fast as all hell, and he's a terror in transition, so you can try to pick him up when he's running down the floor, although he's probably just going to run past you. But if you're able to do it, I would recommend you do, because he's a guaranteed 2 points otherwise. But he's also able to take the ball himself, as his ball handling has been better than everybody thought it was going to be. That was one of the concerns with him coming out of college. It was silenced pretty quickly. And whether it's in the half court or the full court, he's always liable to put you on a poster. Speaking of the half court, his mid-range jumper has been actually okay, still needs some improvement, but his low post game is already really impressive. You look at his frame and his age, and you wouldn't think that, but he has a really surprising array of post moves and feel with his back to the basket. And this is the type of thing that allows you to average 25 points over like 12 seasons, like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant status, is being able to score on the low block, and he's already decent from there. Besides that, he's pretty much a terror scoring inside. He already shoots 57% from inside the paint, so he's going to live there and at the free throw line for his entire career. Now the three-pointer, yeah, it has to get better, which seems to be a trend with like every person I put in these videos, but it is what it is. And then I haven't even mentioned his defense yet. He's a very good on-ball defender. Off-ball, he sometimes falls asleep, but those are the type of things that Tom Thibodeau can clean up. And I think Andrew Wiggins, the athleticism, combined with the post game and being a better ball handler than we thought he'd be this early, him and Karl Anthony Towns are going to run the NBA for a long time, man. And so a bit of a recap for you. Stanley Johnson, as well as Justice Winslow, are both already very good defensive players. In the case of Stanley, his three-point shot is a little farther along, but Justice looks like he's set to be the leader of the Miami Heat from this very season on. Tobias Harris, under a new culture in Detroit, can take his game to the next level. Jabari Parker is ready to average 20-plus points in the NBA this very season. And Andrew Wiggins is a reliable three-point shot away from probably being a top 10 player in this league.